The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, casting long shadows across surfaces that cost more than most people earned in a year. Vivian Ashford stood at the glass, her reflection pale and sharp against the Manhattan skyline, a cup of herbal tea cooling between her hands. The apartment was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic 42 floors below, a silence that had become her constant companion over the past 3 months. Her phone vibrated. Marcus, calling from what he still believed was Singapore. Darling. His voice carried that particular warmth he deployed when lying, the vocal equivalent of expensive cologne masking something rotten underneath. I'm at the airport. Should be home by tonight. Vivian's free hand rested on the gentle curve of her belly. 6 months now, visible even in the silk robe she wore. How was the conference? Exhausting, productive, the usual. A pause, then, I missed you. She closed her eyes. 3 months ago, those words might have meant something. 3 months ago, she'd still been the woman who believed them. Now she knew better. Now she knew everything. I'm sure you did, she said, her voice steady. Singapore must have been very demanding. On her laptop, minimized but not closed, a series of photographs told a different story. Marcus and Sienna Volkov on a Santorini terrace, the Aegean impossibly blue behind them. Marcus feeding her oysters at a restaurant Vivian recognized from travel magazines. Marcus's hand on the small of Sienna's back, possessive in a way he hadn't touched Vivian in years. I have a surprise for you, Marcus said. When I get home. Vivian's reflection smiled, though she felt nothing. How thoughtful. I have something planned as well. After she hung up, she made another call. Catherine, he's landing at 6. We proceed as planned. Catherine Reeves, whose silver hair and surgical precision had dismantled 200 marriages, spoke with the calm of a surgeon discussing an operation. The papers are ready. Judge Morrison signed the emergency orders this morning. The moment you give the word, everything freezes. Tomorrow morning, Vivian said. Let him have tonight. Let him think he's still in control. 3 months earlier, the safe in Marcus's study opened to their wedding date, June 14th. Vivian had always found that romantic, the way he'd programmed their anniversary into the combination. She'd come looking for passports. So, they were supposed to leave for Lake Como in 2 days, a 12th anniversary trip that Marcus had planned with uncharacteristic attention to detail. She found the passports. Both of them. His current one showing a Singapore entry stamp from last month, when he'd told her he was in Boston for a venture capital summit. Her hands shook as she set it aside and saw the graph boxes. 3 of them, navy velvet embossed with gold. She recognized the recent charge on their American Express, $47,000. She'd assumed they were anniversary gifts, had even felt a flicker of the old warmth, the belief that beneath everything, Marcus still saw her. The first box held a diamond tennis bracelet, delicate and modern. Not her style. She preferred vintage pieces, Art Deco geometry, and Victorian romance. This was something a younger woman would wear. The second box, matching earrings, 2 carats each, brilliant cut. The third, a pendant she would never have chosen. Vivian's breathing went shallow. She set the boxes down with hands that had forgotten how to be steady and reached deeper into the safe. Printed emails. Marcus kept physical copies of everything important, a habit from his early days in business. These were exchanges with his attorney about prenuptial compliance and asset protection strategies. Her eyes snagged on a single line. The pregnancy complicates things, but we can structure it so she has limited claim to post-marital appreciation. The pregnancy. Her pregnancy. Their daughter. Reduced to a complication in estate planning. She found his personal phone last, forgotten in his hurry that morning, The screen unlocked to his face. He had never imagined she'd look. Sites, messages with someone saved as SV. 8 months of conversation. Photos that made her stomach turn. Videos she couldn't bring herself to watch. One text, sent 3 weeks ago. Can't wait to be done with the walking checkbook. Once the baby's born and things settle, we'll make it official. The walking checkbook. Vivian dropped to the floor of his study, passport clattering against marble. Her hand covered her mouth, trapping a sound that wanted to become a scream. The baby kicked, strong, insistent, and Vivian curled around that movement, that proof of life inside her, that small person who deserved better than this. She cycled through the stages quickly. Denial. Maybe there was an explanation. Bargaining. Maybe if she confronted him. Maybe if they went to counseling. Rage. Brief and hot. Enough to make her grab a crystal paperweight and hurl it against the wall, where it shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces. Then something else. Something colder. She stood, wiped her face, returned every item to its exact position in the safe, photographed everything with her phone, documents, jewelry, messages, locked the safe, swept up the broken crystal, called her doctor. I need to know if stress can harm the baby, she said, her voice remarkably calm. Because I'm about to experience quite a lot of it. By dawn, she hadn't slept. She'd researched instead. New York divorce law, forensic accounting firms. She knew the good ones from her years at Graham and Associates, before she'd given up partnership to support Marcus's career. Detective agencies. Attorneys who specialized in high net worth divorces where one party had been spectacularly stupid. She'd spent 10 years finding hidden money for corporations, tracing assets through shell companies and offshore accounts, following paper trails that men like Marcus thought were invisible. She'd been one of the best forensic accountants in the city before she became Mrs. Marcus Ashford. Time to remember what she was capable of. The sun rose over Manhattan, painting the skyline in shades of rose and gold. Vivian sat at her laptop, 3 monitors now, her old work setup retrieved from storage, and watched the first financial report download. Marcus's complete history, pulled using investigative credentials she'd never let lapse. She wasn't his wife anymore. She was the auditor who was about to bankrupt him. 2 months later, the conference room at Reeves and Hartman occupied an entire floor of a midtown tower. All glass and chrome, and the particular silence that came with lawyers' fees, billed at $950 per hour. Catherine Reeves sat across from Vivian, reading through documents with the focus of a surgeon reviewing scans before a complex operation. This isn't a divorce, Catherine said finally, looking up with eyes that had seen every variation of human betrayal and were still capable of surprise. This is a RICO case waiting to happen. Vivian had spent 6 weeks building the file. Every offshore account, $12 million in the Cayman Islands, that Marcus thought was invisible. The Shell Corporation under his mother's maiden name holding $28 million in real estate. The systematic underreporting of income on financial disclosures. The creative accounting that would look very bad under forensic scrutiny. He's been preparing for this, Vivian said. The prenup has an infidelity clause, but he's been moving assets to shield them from division. I want everything frozen before he knows what's happening. Catherine smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Judge Morrison owes me a favor. Family court, known for being extremely unsympathetic to financial manipulation. We'll file for emergency relief. Every account, every property, every investment vehicle, frozen pending discovery. How quickly? I can have the orders drafted by tomorrow. The moment you're ready to file, we execute. Catherine leaned forward. But I need to know. Are you certain? Once we start this, there's no going back. It's going to be ugly. Vivian thought of the text message. Walking checkbook. Topard, she thought of jewelry bought for another woman with their money. She thought of her daughter, swimming in darkness, deserving a mother who didn't accept being erased. I'm certain. The private investigator's report arrived 3 days later. His name was Morrison, no relation to the judge, and he'd spent 20 years with the NYPD before going private. What he'd assembled in 2 weeks was devastating. Sienna Volkov, 25, aspiring model, actual occupation unclear. Rent on her Soho loft, $18,000 monthly. Paid by Shell LLC, traced back to Marcus. Tesla Model S in her parking space. $110,000, registration showing same LLC. Modeling career, LLC in her name. Marcus sole investor, $340,000 transferred over 8 months. Every restaurant, every hotel, every weekend trip disguised as business travel. Morrison had receipts, timestamps, side photographs that would hold up in court. Your husband is not particularly careful, Morrison observed when they met in a coffee shop in Chelsea, far from anywhere Marcus might appear. Men like him rarely are. They think money makes them invisible. It usually does, Vivian said. Not to people who know how to look. He slid a second folder across the table. The woman, though, she's smarter than he is. She's been documenting everything, too. Text messages where he promises to leave you, mentions of your pregnancy. She thinks she's building a case for when he makes her the second Mrs. Ashford. Vivian felt something almost like pity for Sienna Volkov. Almost. She's going to be very disappointed. David Chen agreed to meet her at a wine bar in Tribeca, the kind of place where privacy was purchased with reserve bottles of Burgundy at 4 figures each. Vivian arrived early, ordered sparkling water, and waited. She'd known Chen before Marcus. He'd tried to recruit her to his venture fund 10 years ago, when she was rising fast at Graham and Associates. She'd chosen Marcus instead. Chosen love, chosen the promise of partnership that had slowly revealed itself as diminishment. Chen looked exactly as she remembered. Late 50s, understated elegance, the kind of quiet power that didn't need to announce itself. He'd built a $2 billion fund through patience and precision. He was also Marcus's biggest competitor. Vivian. He sat across from her, noting the pregnancy, the new hardness in her eyes. It's been a long time. I made a mistake, she said. 10 years ago, when you offered me a position and I turned you down. You chose your husband's career over your own. Chen's expression was neutral. Many people make that choice. Few admit it was a mistake. I'd like to correct it. She laid out her proposal. A new firm specializing in forensic accounting for high net worth divorces. She had the expertise, the credentials, the network. What she needed was capital and credibility. Chen listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You want to build a business on the corpse of your marriage, he said finally. Yes. And you want to do it in Marcus's building, watching his fund from offices 1 floor below. Yes, Chen smiled. $5 million in seed funding, 20% equity. Your firm's name will be Ashford Chen Forensics. Vivian felt something unlock in her chest. His name, neutered, on my business. Forever, Chen agreed. Marcus is a mediocre investor who got lucky in a bull market. You're the strategist he never was. This isn't charity, Vivian. This is good business. Your first case study, dismantling Marcus Ashford, will be legendary. 1 month later, the trap was elegant in its simplicity. Catherine suggested 11 Madison Park, the restaurant where Marcus had proposed 12 years ago. Vivian reserved the corner table for Thursday evening. The table where she'd said yes to a future that had revealed itself as fiction. She let it slip through carefully chosen channels. She was having dinner with an old colleague. She seemed fragile lately. possibly depressed. There were whispers about reconciliation, about forgiveness, about a woman too pregnant and dependent to do anything but accept her fate. Marcus's assistant, whom Vivian had cultivated over years of lunches and holiday gifts, mentioned it casually. Mrs. Ashford has reservations at 11 Madison on Thursday. I thought you'd want to know. Vivian knew what Marcus would do. His ego wouldn't allow any other response. He'd see it as an opportunity, a chance to assert dominance, to remind her of her place. He'd bring Sienna. Thursday arrived with the particular clarity that comes before storms. Vivian spent the morning at her new office, still mostly empty, but hers. 3 senior accountants had accepted positions. The contracts were signed. The website would go live Monday. She dressed carefully. Black Dior, severe and elegant, cut to flatter her pregnancy rather than hide it. The baby had been active all day, as though sensing her mother's heightened awareness. Vivian rested her hand on that movement, drawing strength from it. One more night, she whispered. Tomorrow, everything changes. 11 Madison Park occupied a restored Art Deco building, all marble and soaring ceilings, and the particular hush that came with Michelin stars and 6-month waiting lists. Vivian arrived at 7:45 and found David Chen waiting at the entrance, bespoke Tom Ford and quiet authority. Ready? He asked. I've been ready for 3 months. The maitre d' escorted them to the corner table. Their table. White peonies in a crystal vase, the same flowers from 12 years ago. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Madison Park, the trees just beginning to turn. The sommelier appeared with wine lists bound in leather. Chen ordered Chateau Margaux 2015, $900 a bottle. Signaling, Chen said when the sommelier departed. Everything tonight is a signal. The restaurant filled around them. Vivian recognized faces, tech CEO whose company Marcus had tried to court. Socialite from the board of Lenox Hill, where Vivienne used to volunteer. Financial journalist from the Wall Street Journal. Perfect witnesses. She waved to a few, warm and composed. They saw her, visibly pregnant, glowing with something that looked like happiness, dining with David Chen. Everyone in their circle knew Chen. Everyone knew what his presence meant. Chen briefed her quietly as they waited. Tomorrow morning, before markets open, 3 investors will receive detailed concerns about Marcus's fund. Nothing actionable, just enough to make them nervous. Simultaneously, the divorce filing becomes public record. Simultaneously, financial reporters will have access to certain irregularities. By lunch, his reputation will be in free fall. And tonight you end it. Clean, public, devastating. Vivian touched her wedding ring. Platinum, 2 carats, chosen together in another lifetime. She'd worn it for 12 years. She removed it now, slipped it into her clutch. Chen noticed, nodded slightly. It was time. Marcus arrived at 8 o'clock exactly. Vivian saw him enter, saw the confidence in his posture, the possessive hand on Sienna Volkov's back. Sienna wore emerald Versace, $8,000 that Vivian recognized from the Graf receipt. The jewelry at her throat and wrists caught the light. The jewelry from the safe. The jewelry meant for her. Marcus felt invincible. She could see it in the way he moved, the way he scanned the room to ensure he was seen. He wanted witnesses to his power, his success, his beautiful young companion while his wife sat home preparing a nursery. Then his eyes found Vivian. She watched him stop mid-sentence. Watched the confusion cross his face, then the calculation. His pregnant wife at their table, with David Chen. Laughing at something Chen had said, her hand resting on her belly, backlit by window light. They looked like a couple, like partners, like equals. Sienna noticed his distraction. Marcus, who was that? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. His brain was trying to process impossible variables. Wife supposed to be home, rival at the same table, her radiance, her ease, the complete absence of the fragility he'd been told to expect. Vivian saw him make the decision, saw his jaw set, his shoulders square. He was going to confront them. Of course he was. His ego wouldn't allow anything else. Sienna pulled his arm. Let's go somewhere else. But Marcus was already moving, crossing the restaurant with the kind of aggressive confidence that had served him well in boardrooms and nowhere else. Other diners noticed. Conversations quieted. Phones appeared. Vivian looked up as he reached the table. Her expression was perfect surprise. Marcus, how unexpected. Her voice carried, not loud, but clear. Weren't you supposed to be returning from Singapore? The question landed like a blade between ribs. Singapore. The lie he'd told her this morning. The lie she knew was a lie, and now he knew she knew. Vivian. His voice came out harder than he'd intended. What are you doing here? Having dinner. She gestured to Chen with elegant economy. You remember David? We're discussing business. Chen stood, a courtesy that also established dominance, making Marcus look up slightly. Marcus, congratulations on your recent fund closing. 40 million, wasn't it? Marcus's eyes moved between them, trying to understand. What kind of business? The kind that doesn't involve you anymore. Vivian's voice was ice over steel. Please sit. I believe we should talk. You and your companion. Sienna had followed, though reluctantly. She stood slightly behind Marcus now, and Vivian saw the recognition dawn. The pregnant wife, the jewelry Sienna wore, the sudden understanding of how this looked. Marcus pulled out a chair without being invited. A power play. Sienna remained standing, uncertain. I don't appreciate being ambushed, Marcus said. No? Vivian tilted her head. How strange. I felt exactly the same way 3 months ago when I found your phone, your passports, your emails with your attorney about protecting assets from the pregnancy complication. That would be me, by the way, and our daughter. The ones you referred to as complications. The blood drained from his face. I found the jewelry too, Vivian continued, her tone conversational, her volume pitched for nearby tables. The graph pieces, $47,000. I thought they were for our anniversary, but her eyes moved to Sienna's throat. I see you had other plans. Sienna's hand flew to the necklace. Those aren't yours, Vivian said gently. They were purchased with marital assets, community property. You're wearing stolen goods. I didn't, Sienna started, but Vivian raised a hand. You didn't know. Of course you didn't. Marcus has a gift for making women feel special while erasing them from his actual life. She looked back at her husband. Singapore. Was it worth it? Marcus's jaw clenched. You went through my things. You spied on me. I audited you, Vivian corrected. It's what I do. What I used to do at Graham and Associates before I gave up partnership to support your career. I'm very good at finding hidden money, Marcus. Exceptionally good. Want to know what I found? He said nothing. 12 million in the Cayman Islands. Shell Corporation under your mother's maiden name holding 28 million in properties. Systematic underreporting of income. Fraudulent conveyance of marital assets. She recited it like a grocery list. I documented everything, every account, every transfer, every lie you told our attorney about our net worth. The restaurant had gone very quiet. You can't, Marcus began. I already did. Catherine Reeves has been preparing for 3 months. You know Catherine? She's destroyed over 200 marriages. She's particularly excited about ours. Vivian stood, and Chen stood with her. Tomorrow morning at 8, Emergency asset freeze orders will be executed. Every account, every property, every credit line. By the time you understand what's happening, you'll own nothing that isn't frozen pending forensic discovery. Marcus stood too, trying to reclaim height advantage. You're bluffing. Am I? Vivian smiled. Test it. Try to access your accounts tomorrow. Any of them. See what happens. She picked up her clutch, her movements unhurried. I'm not coming home, Marcus. Not tonight. Not ever. Catherine will be contacting your attorney in the morning with divorce papers. Given your infidelity, documented extensively, including your promises to Ms. Volkov about making her your wife, the prenup's infidelity clause is very much in play. Given your financial manipulation, also documented extensively, the court is going to be extremely interested in punitive distribution. She turned to Sienna, and her voice softened almost to kindness. He told you about the baby, didn't he? About how once she was born and things settled, he'd leave me for you? Vivian watched Sienna's face confirm it. He lied to you too. The same way he lied to me for 8 months. Whatever he promised you, it was fiction. The only truth is that he's a man who destroys what he touches. Sienna's eyes were wet. The jewelry is community property, Vivian said. You should probably return it. Otherwise, you're part of the asset dissipation case. Then Vivian looked at Marcus one final time. You called me a walking checkbook, she said quietly. I'm going to show you what happens when the checkbook audits the borrower. When you lose everything, your fund, your reputation, your freedom from legal consequences, remember that you did this. Every piece of evidence I have, you created. Every witness I'll call, you provided. You built the case against yourself. She walked away. Chen followed. Behind them, Marcus stood frozen, the architect of his own demolition, finally understanding that he'd underestimated the wrong woman. The maitre d' appeared at Vivian's elbow. Mrs. Ashford, your car is waiting. She stepped into the Manhattan night, 42 stories of city light surrounding her, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Free. The next morning, Marcus woke in the Soho loft, Sienna's place, at 6:47 a.m. to the sound of courier delivery. A heavy envelope slid under the door. He ignored it, tried to reclaim sleep, but his phone began buzzing with texts. His CFO, call me immediately. His board chairman, we need to talk, now. 3 investors, have you seen it? Marcus grabbed his phone, scrolled through messages, each one asking the same thing. Seen what? He opened the envelope. Wall Street Journal, front page, his face. Ashford Fund under scrutiny. Divorce filing reveals potential financial irregularities. His knees went weak. The paper slipped from his fingers, pages spreading across Sienna's hardwood floor. The article was devastating, filed under seal but somehow leaked. Questions about offshore accounts, shell corporations, asset protection strategies that looked suspiciously like hiding marital property from division. Quotes from unnamed sources, investors expressing concern, asking for transparency. His phone rang. Attorney. Tell me this isn't true, Marcus demanded. Which part? His attorney sounded exhausted. The divorce filing? That's public record as of 7 a.m. The asset freeze? Judge Morrison signed emergency orders at 6:30. Every account you have is locked pending forensic discovery. Or the irregularities? Those are about to become a regulatory nightmare. This is impossible. It's extremely possible. Your wife is represented by Catherine Reeves, who filed one of the most comprehensive discovery petitions I've ever seen. 3 forensic accounting firms are already engaged. The court granted pendent elite relief, freezing all accounts based on evidence of fraudulent conveyance and dissipation of marital assets. Marcus sat down hard. What does that mean? It means you can't access any money until this is resolved. It means the court believes you were hiding assets and moving money to avoid equitable distribution. It means, his attorney paused. It means you're in very serious trouble. Your wife was a forensic accountant, Marcus, one of the best. She built a case that makes you look like you were planning fraud. I was protecting what's mine. Nothing is yours. You're married. Community property state. Everything acquired during the marriage belongs to both of you, and you've been systematically trying to shield it from division. That's illegal. Marcus ended the call, hands shaking. He tried his American Express, declined, his bank account, frozen, his corporate credit line, suspended pending review. A text from Sienna. We need to talk. He didn't respond. 3 days later, the board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Marcus arrived at Sterling Tower at 1:30, hoping to prepare, hoping to control the narrative. The receptionist's expression told him everything. Mr. Ashford, they're waiting for you in the conference room. 7 men in bespoke suits sat around the table, his board, the people who'd trusted him with their money. Their faces were grave. The chairman spoke first. Marcus, we've reviewed the allegations in the divorce filing. We've also received questions from 3 of our largest investors about fund management practices. Those allegations are from my wife. She's trying to destroy me in a divorce. Is the offshore account in the Caymans real? Marcus hesitated. Is the Shell Corporation holding real estate real? Silence. Did you systematically underreport your net worth to minimize potential spousal support obligations? That's personal. It's not personal when you're a fiduciary, the chairman interrupted. You manage other people's money. If you're hiding your own assets, what does that say about how you manage theirs? This is completely separate. The Wall Street Journal doesn't think so. Bloomberg doesn't think so. 3 of our investors don't think so. The chairman slid a document across the table. This is a request for independent audit of fund returns. It's signed by investors representing 60% of capital. Marcus stared at the paper. Additionally, the board has voted to place you on administrative leave effective immediately while we conduct internal review. You'll be escorted out. If the review concludes favorably, you'll be reinstated. If not, he didn't finish. Security appeared at the door. Marcus stood, feeling like he was watching himself from a distance. You're making a mistake. Perhaps, the chairman said, but we're making it carefully. Your access is suspended. Your corporate accounts are frozen. Your signature authority is revoked. We'll be in touch. The walk to the elevator felt infinite. Other employees watched from offices, from cubicles. News traveled fast in finance. Everyone knew. The security guard was professional, silent. He rode down with Marcus, walked him through the lobby, waited while Marcus handed over his key card, his badge, his parking access. Good luck, sir, the guard said, and it sounded like condolence. Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside his own building, the tower that bore his family name in bronze letters, and felt reality fracture around him. 1 week later, Sienna's text was brief. I can't do this. I'm sorry. She'd left the loft, left the jewelry in a box on the counter with a note. These were never really mine. Marcus sat in the empty apartment. Not his apartment, he realized, but one he'd been renting for her with money that was now frozen, and understood what isolation meant. His father called once. The conversation lasted 3 minutes. You embarrassed the family. You destroyed your marriage while your wife was pregnant. You put the fund at risk. A long pause. Your mother and I need distance from this. Friends stopped calling. Colleagues avoided him. Investors who'd returned his emails a week ago were now unreachable. The media coverage continued. Not front page anymore, but steady. Each new revelation, another account discovered, another property traced, another lie exposed, eroded what remained of his reputation. Catherine Reeves was methodical. Every week, new discovery. Every week, more evidence of the gap between what Marcus had claimed as his net worth and what forensic accountants were finding. The fund collapsed slowly, then all at once. Investors withdrew. The board declined to reinstate him. By month's end, Sterling Fund Management was being absorbed by a competitor, the name erased, Marcus's legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about hubris. 6 months later, the profile appeared in Forbes. Vivian Ashford, forensic accounting's rising star. Marcus saw it at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Not his usual haunts, because he couldn't afford them anymore. The photo showed Vivian in her office, floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, skyline glittering. Her daughter visible in a carrier beside her desk, 3 months old now, with Vivian's eyes. The article detailed her firm's rapid rise. Ashford Chen Forensics had closed 12 cases in 6 months, each one representing a high-net-worth divorce where one spouse had tried to hide assets. Her success rate was perfect. Her fees were astronomical. Her reputation was impeccable. "My own divorce was the best education I could have received," she was quoted saying. "It taught me every method men use to shield assets from equitable distribution. Now I help other women find what their husbands tried to hide." There was a photo of her office building, the same building that had housed Sterling Fund Management, one floor below where his empire used to be. The firm's name was everywhere. Ashford Chen. His family name, neutered and repurposed, serving as permanent reminder of his failure. Marcus set down the magazine and stared at his empty coffee cup. He'd lost everything. The fund, the properties, most of his liquid assets, distributed to Vivian in a settlement his attorney had advised him to accept rather than risk trial. His reputation, his father's respect, his place in the circles he'd once dominated. Vivian had taken his name, the name he'd given her in marriage, and made it mean something he couldn't touch. She'd taken his rival as her partner and built something that would outlast anything Marcus had created. She'd taken their daughter and raised her in offices that overlooked the ruins of his career. She hadn't just won. She'd erased him and rebuilt herself from what remained. 2 years later, Marcus saw her once more, by accident, at a charity gala he'd been invited to. Not as a donor, but as someone's guest. A courtesy that tasted like pity. Vivian entered on David Chen's arm, though Marcus understood now that they weren't romantic. They were partners in the purest sense. Equals, allies. Two people who respected each other's competence. She wore midnight blue, elegant and severe. Her daughter, their daughter, though he'd never met her, was with a nanny somewhere. She saw him across the room and held his gaze for just a moment. No anger, no triumph, just acknowledgement of his existence, brief and polite before she turned back to her conversation. It was worse than hatred. It was indifference. Marcus understood then what she'd meant that night at 11 Madison Park. She hadn't destroyed him for revenge. She'd destroyed him because he'd treated her destruction as acceptable. Because he'd reduced her to a checkbook, a complication, an obstacle to his real life. She'd simply shown him what happened when the obstacle audited the books. He left early. No one noticed. Present-day Vivian stood at the window of her office, not a penthouse anymore, but something better. Earned space, not given. Below, the city moved in its relentless rhythm. Behind her, her daughter played quietly, 3 years old now, building towers with blocks and knocking them down with delighted laughter. "Mama, look." She'd built something elaborate, a structure that defied her age. Vivian turned from the window, kneeled beside her daughter, and admired the architecture of her creation. "It's perfect," she said, and meant it. Her phone buzzed. New client inquiry, another divorce, Another woman who'd been underestimated. Vivian read the details and smiled. She'd rebuilt herself from ruins once. Now she helped other women do the same. The work was meaningful. The victories were real. The life she'd constructed from the debris of her marriage was more solid than anything that had come before. Some nights she thought about Marcus, wondered where he was, what he was doing, whether he understood yet what he'd lost. Not the money or the reputation, those were just symbols. He'd lost the chance to know his daughter, to watch her grow, to be present for the small moments that became a life. That was the real cost of his choices. Vivian didn't regret the divorce, didn't regret the public destruction or the ruthless efficiency with which she'd dismantled his empire. She'd protected herself and her daughter. She'd reclaimed her professional identity. She'd built something that would outlast the marriage that had tried to erase her. Time to go home, she told her daughter, lifting her into her arms. Home was a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, purchased with her own money, filled with her own choices. No ghosts, no regrets, just possibility. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 futures. Vivian chose hers.